All right. Then get back into Path to the Stars, chapter 1. And it's kind of long. So we got a lot of following along and reading to do.
Wait, is there like 2 parts with the distance between us?
No, that was really unique with that book.
Yeah.
It was the life like in Mexico and then the life in the United States. But she was born in the United States.
In this book, will we have some Spanish words in here?
I think you're gonna have to help me out again. I'm not sure, but probably. The other 2 books you did. All right, I'll share my screen. Where'd it go? I have all these options. Can you guys see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, weird. I guess there was an update.
It's really small.
It is really small. Is that better?
Yeah.
Chapter 1, Born in the Shadow of Mount Rushmore. Do you guys know where Mount Rushmore is?
Yeah.
No? Okay, we'll find out. My papa wasn't much for telling stories. He liked facts and information. If you asked him about the Mexican Revolution or about the freezing point of water, he'd go on all day, sounding grown up and important like the men who read the news on television. Mommy was the storyteller in our family. As long as the subject was people, I thought she must know everybody in the world, who their family was, where they came from, and what they did all day. Still, my father had one story that I always loved to hear. Papa, tell me about the hospital, I begged him. Sometimes it took a few tries, but he'd finally look up from his book. The hospital, he'd repeat, his voice thoughtful. I drove by it every day, but I've never gone inside. It was not far from Ellsworth Air Force Base, where we lived when I was stationed in South Dakota, less than an hour from Mount Rushmore. He would always start by telling me about this time in the Army, about his time in the Army. Papa was proud of his Army service, so part of the story was about how he had entered the Army after the Korean War as a lieutenant in the Air Defense Artillery. Your brother, Mario, was already 2 years old, Papa would continue, finally getting to the important part of the story. Once we knew the baby was about to be born, I brought Mommy to the hospital. We all went inside, even Mario. The nurse told me Mommy would need some time and I should come back later. So I went home to the base where we lived and left Mario with a neighbor. When I got back to the hospital, they said it would be a while before I could see your mother. In those days, father stayed in a waiting room while their babies were being born, and new babies were usually brought to the nursery, not kept with their mothers. It was a long time before a nurse came out to tell Papa that Mommy was fine, but she was asleep. The nurse said Papa could see his baby. When he got to the nursery, Papa looked through a big window and saw rows of metal cribs with clear plastic sides. Each crib just big enough for one tiny infant. Some of the babies had blonde hair and some had brown hair, or no hair at all. Nearly all of them had fair skin. Only one baby had very dark hair. That was me, I'd say. I wasn't even 1 day old. I knew Papa had no trouble picking me out in the nursery because I looked like him, even though he was a grown man in an army uniform and I was a little baby wrapped in a white blanket. He knew right away I was his, and I was sure that I knew right away that he was my Papa. Papa would nod at that point in the story, and sometimes he'd even smile. I'd wait for him to say something else, but usually his nose would go right back into his book. I was always excited to hear his story, but over the years, I came to understand more about what living in Nahor, I can't see you. I need you to sit up, please. You gotta sit up, girl. We in school still. Thank you. South Dakota had been like for Mommy. Papa's family was from Mexico, but he had grown up in Texas. He had gotten all of his schooling, including college, in the United States, and he spoke English well. After graduation, he was fulfilling his Army ROTC commitment as an officer stationed in South Dakota, and he went off to work every day at the Missile Battalion protecting Ellsworth Air Force Base. But Mommy had grown up in Parral, am I saying that right? Parral, Mexico, in the state of Chihuahua, and didn't understand a word of English. The neighbors gave her baby clothes and thick winter coats for the brutal South Dakota winters, but they didn't speak Spanish. Papa was often away overnight, and she was alone with two small children. I remember Mommy singing a song about Maranito or
I
Mararin.
cannot see that. That's way too small.
I know it is so small. A little pig. While counting our fingers and toes, Mario and I loved having her undivided attention, and she loved playing with us and making us laugh. But Mommy had no adults to talk with except Papa. Even the landscape was not what Mommy was used to. Tree-covered hills and rolling plains instead of a desert sprinkled with cacti and spiky plants. The summers were very hot, with black flies everywhere, and the winters were freezing cold. Only the stars were the same as she remembered from home. Mommy never liked to complain, but she must have been lonely. She was overjoyed when Papa's tour of duty was up after 2 years and he was discharged from the Army. Now we were free to move to a new home. Mommy and Papa packed up their beige 1955 Ford and drove 1,000 miles south to Las Cruces, New Mexico, where we moved in with Tia Alma, Papa's older sister, and her family, the Barbas. Uncle Sam Barba and my cousins, Debbie, Kathy, and Sammy. I don't know why we used the Spanish tia for Tia Alma, but the Anglo uncle for Uncle Sam. That's just the way it was. My father's mother, Abuelita Juanita, lived with the Barbas too. When we moved in, Mario was 4 years old and I was just 2. From the first day, I remembered the babble of voices, the adults speaking Spanish, a swirl of words and song and argument and stories and laughter with my mother somehow always at the center. My cousins spoke a mix of English and Spanish, but Mario and I spoke only Spanish at that time. I remember eating breakfast in the family room, sitting at the table with Mario and my cousins, each of us with our small glass of juice and bowl of cereal. Mario and I slept in this room too, because all of the bedrooms were full. Carla, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah. Were the babies that we were talking about? It keeps on saying babies instead of baby. So are they having like twins or something?
They were just talking about all the babies at the hospital. There were a bunch of babies in one room back then. Now the babies get to stay with the parents in their room, but back in the day they didn't do that.
Um.
So she's the only girl. There's Mario and her that we know about so far, right? The two of them.
Yeah.
The house was crowded, but I didn't mind because there was always someone to play with. Every day after breakfast, we tumble outside and chase one another through the yard and the back alley, discovering the world. I remember running to catch up with Mario and my older cousins, running for the sheer joy
Did you see that? She's like this, and then she's like yours.
Recording because I watched yesterday's, and
Is it better now?
Oh, there you are. Yeah.
Oh my god, I missed it.
Doesn't look like my internet's any better on my phone. I don't know why.
We were at the.
The house was crowded?
Yeah.
Okay. The house was crowded, but I didn't mind because there was always someone to play with. Every day after breakfast, we'd tumble outside and chase one another through the yard and the back alley, discovering the world. I remember running to catch up with Mario and my older cousins, running for the sheer joy of speed and the wind on my face. For my father, who grew up with one much older sister, the noise of 5 children was a trial. He loved us, but he would often spend his afternoons at the library instead of playing with us or helping my mother around the house. Once he found work, rather than wearing his army uniform, Papa dressed like the other men in our new neighborhood, donning dress slacks and a button-down shirt and tie for his new job at New Mexico State University, where he was a chemist in the physical science laboratories. So let's go back. This word donning means to wear something. You can kind of get that through the context clues, but I just want to make sure you guys see this word. D-O-N-I-G means don something, means to wear it.
I like that the character, when she said drawing or something like that, that she added details. So like we were like, sorry, that's my brother singing. So I like that she like after the end, so like we could like hear it, like the word after, and it would like make sense.
Yes, you're right. She does make it really good to make sense. She is a good writer. My aunt, uncle, and grandmother went to work too. My aunt was a school teacher, and my uncle worked at White Sands Missile Range. My grandmother had a job at a clothing store. My mother was left to keep house and look after all the children. It was a lot of responsibility for her. Mommy had grown up poor, with 13 brothers and sisters. Her school days ended after the 6th grade, but she'd wanted more education. She took a typing class and made her way north to the border city of Juarez, Mexico, where, when she was 16, hoping to work as a secretary. She didn't find a job in Juarez, but she would regularly cross the pedestrian bridge to El Paso in Texas, where she worked cleaning homes. Mommy made many friends in El Paso. She was only 19 when she met Papa. By the time they moved to Las Cruces, they had been married for almost 5 years. Mommy was 24 and Papa was 26. My aunt and uncle's house was small, but it had soft carpets and a baby grand piano show-horned in the living room. So that means it's like the biggest thing in the whole house is this massive piano.
They met each other pretty young, huh?
Yeah, you'll have to ask how old your parents were when they met. I was around that stage. I was about 20. You have to ask your parents how old they were when they met.
My mom was 29. She told me.
29 when she met your dad?
No.
When she got married? When she had kids?
I think my dad was like in the 29.
He had me when I was.
And then my mom was in the 22. I don't know.
You guys have to ask.
She was 30.
Because my dad's older than her. And taller than her.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the strange thing, because moms are so short, and then the boys are so tall.
Uh-oh.
I know, it's weird. Okay.
Probably my brother will grow up like older than me.
Taller than you. Yep. All right, so the big piano in the middle of the house. With her hard scrambled background, my mother thought my aunt, uncle, and grandmother put on aristocratic heirs, which is very formal. She felt like her dad's side of the family was very formal. She felt they looked down on her for having grown up in poverty. Papa was a college graduate, and his sister, Tia Alma, was too. Mommy knew his family would have preferred that he had married someone with more education than she had. Papa would have been content to stay at his sister's house, as crowded as it was, but Mommy wanted her own home. In the afternoons, when my grandmother returned from her job, my mother would take me for walks and look for signs that said Casa para rentar, meaning a house was for rent. It wasn't long before my mother found a new house for us, and we moved out of my aunt and uncle's home. Now we lived less than a mile away on Solano Street, a busy thoroughfare next to Arroyo, a steep, dry gully that flooded after the heavy summer rains. It's kind of a connection there with the other two books with the rains and the floods. Our new house was made of cinder blocks and painted green on the outside. It was tiny, with barely enough room for the four of us and Manchas, our dog. There were two small bedrooms, a bathroom, a kitchen with just enough space for a table, and a living room with a fold-out couch that took up the entire room when it was open. The bedroom Mario and I shared had a closet, two small beds, and a round hooked rug where we played with our toys. We liked to go outside and play in the arroyo, where there was room to run around. Our new next door neighbor raised chickens, and she sold Mommy fresh eggs. Every Sunday, my father would buy a chicken from her, and she'd slaughter it so Mommy could cook it for dinner after church. Friends from church gave us some furniture, and Mommy shopped around for more, using layaway plans at stores since we didn't have a credit card. My mother was very thrifty. She budgeted carefully to be able to buy a green Formica kitchen table and chairs, as well as our other new furniture. Soon after we moved in, the living room became even more crowded because my mother's younger sister, Tia Angelica, would you say it like that?
Angelita.
Angelica?
Angelita.
I'll try. Arrived from Mexico to stay with us. She had come to help out because Mommy was going to have a baby.
Oh, she's having a baby. I wonder if they're gonna be a girl or a twins. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna try to say it right again, Carla. Tia
Angelita.
Angelica was young and pretty. With her hair, she swept up into a ponytail that swung around when she turned her head. She adored my mother, and Mommy was overjoyed to have her little sister living with us. They talked and laughed and sang all day long. Tia
Yeah, Angelita.
didn't want to be a burden on our family. She helped Mommy and quickly found work cleaning. Tia Alma's house, as well as other people's homes. She loved Mario and me, and she praised us, making us feel special and very smart. She'd take us to the toy store and buy us something with her earnings to treat us to a showing at the Mexican movie theater, where an actor named, that's hard to read also because it's on a fold, Cantinflas.
Cantinflas. Oh my god, I watched that. He actually makes movies, and he's the one that makes short movies.
Oh, we'll have to look into that. So he was.
Wait,
What'd you say?
he died a long time ago.
Oh, he did. Okay, well, he would make us laugh and laugh. At night, Tia Angelica slept on the couch. There was a crib squeezed between the sofa and the coffee table, and Tia Angelica and Mommy unpacked Mario's and my old baby clothes while I watched, fascinated. I was 4 years old now, and while I didn't much care for dolls, I had one named Oscar, a Christmas present from my grandmother. I wanted to see the little brother or sister whose clothes were no bigger than Oscar's. Even though I had seen pictures of me as a baby, I had trouble imagining another baby living in our house. Would it cry all day? What would it be like to have a new brother or a sister? What would its name be? Most important, would the new baby be a boy, like Mario, or a girl, like me? I thought Papa would probably prefer another boy, but I didn't want to ask him. Mommy, smiling, refused to say which kind of baby she'd like best. We would just have to wait and see. So, being that our class is over in 4 minutes already, I'm going to stop there. That's page 14, but page 10 on here.
We didn't finish
The chapter, no, because our class would end before I had the chance, and that was a good stopping point.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I read 10 pages, and we'll try to get through tomorrow a little bit faster.
Chapters. How many pages are there? Like computer pages?
In one chapter or in the entire book?
No, in like this chapter.
In this chapter?
How many left?
Looks like 12
12?
or 11 and a half.
Wow.
We read 10 today, so we'll get through it tomorrow. So when we meet on Monday, we'll be on chapter 2.
Yeah, what are we doing tomorrow?
We're gonna read this again.
Probably finish it. Right?
We're gonna finish this chapter. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
Goodbye, whoever's watching.
Oh my god.